Welcome to this episode of the Good Death Podcast. Today we have Elizabeth Coplan, and she is the founder and creator of Grief Dialogue. So she puts her beautiful creativity and magic into this space with creating plays about grief. And she has done an amazing job at really bringing in the energy of what so many families have experienced so we can relate to that. But I want to talk to you about the good death. And I want to talk to you about grief for a minute, because it's no surprise that at this moment we have this traumatic level of grief and pain, probably 10,000 times more than is really needed. And why? Because we've removed all the awareness, the understanding, the sacredness about death. And bringing that back in its truth is what Doula Givers Institute, what this podcast, what the Good Death book is all about. So if you want to step into this space, if you want a book that will help you be empowered with naturally how to care for somebody at the end of life and understanding that natural process, but also heal grief. People have said that reading this book, taking these courses from Doula Givers has healed their grief. And I am talking about grief from 30, 40 years ago, even parents who've had children leave this planet early. So if there's a book with one place where you can get empowerment, healing, and inspiration about life, it is the Good Death book, which could have been called the Good Life book. So I invite you, and we have a Good Death book club on now, a live book club on now. So join us in global community. Right now, sit back, relax, and listen to this amazing podcast with our incredible guest, Elizabeth Coplan. Elizabeth, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
This is a long overdue conversation on the podcast. Now, I have had the honor and privilege to know you and be in several of your wonderful events. Like I said before we actually started today, I really adore you. Your passion, your heart, your creativity. You are just an example of a wonderful human being, but somebody who's really making an impact. And so let's start there. Can you share with me your background, please, and how you started Grief Dialogues? How did you get called to create that vision?
Right, right. Well, I just first want to say that's mutual, by the way. I am so inspired by your work too. Actually, how Grief Dialogues got started was rather serendipitously. I have a theater background in that I was an actor right out of, well, actually, I only went to college for a year, became an actor, realized I could either eat or pay rent on an actor's salary. Can't do both at the same time. So I then finished college and went on to a 40-year degree or 40-year career in marketing. But I always loved the theater, and I would go to it every chance I got. And I always thought that someday maybe I'd, direct at a community theater or regional theater, but that didn't happen. What did happen was I started to lose loved ones, and I started to lose a lot at the same time, and not necessarily because they were old. In fact,
Mm.
it was 2010, I believe, when my cousin was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. She had suffered through one uh, set of series of treatments, chemo, radiation, surgery, and it had been in remission for a couple of years, and then it came back, and she said no more. So my sister and I were with her during her final days. At that same time, my best friend's husband was killed in a freak accident. He was,
Mm.
and not his fault, just a total freak accident. And there was another person who died that well for his time that year. Additionally, when I would visit my in-laws in Chicago, I just remember my father-in-law saying to me one day, "If I die," and he was 88 years old at the time, and I was like, what's with the if? So what happened when I went back to work after my cousin died, people knew I'd been in Southern California, so they assumed I was on vacation, and they started asking me vacation questions, and I said, well, no, that's not what I did. And I started to talk about what I was actually there for, and people changed the subject. or they suddenly remembered they had a phone call they had to make or something. And people did not want to talk about this very real topic that was happening to all of us. And yes, as our parents got older, it was happening to our parents, but at the same time, it was starting to be people my own age or even younger. So I channeled, because I've always been a writer, and I channeled uh, my at that time, not sure it was grief or frustration or confusion or all three, but I channeled it into like an essay that I had sent family members back in Missouri to, because they wanted to know how were Myra's final hours. And so I explained what exactly happened, and everybody loved it. They really appreciated how I wrote it and felt I got many comments about I felt I was there. So loving theater, I thought, you know what, I'm going to turn this into a play, just a short play. I wrote a 10-minute play based on that story, had some friends, theater friends, look at it, and they said, you know, there's this new thing out there called 10-minute play festivals. And I suggest that you enter it. And I thought, well, why not? The best part about it was I started winning those festivals. And of course, the only thing you really win is a production of your show, but that's, pretty significant. And I did find very quickly that when I was actually in attendance at the show and people knew I was the playwright, they would come up to me and they'd say something like, that play, your play was great. Something like that happened to me when my mother died, and then they'd launch into their own story. And I completely realized that it wasn't my great writing, it was the fact that I had opened the stage, if you will, to allow other people to talk about their own experiences. And that's when I thought, well, wow, if that generated that much sharing and healthy sharing, what would happen if there were like 6 short plays about other scenarios around dying, death, and
Mhm.
grief? So I
Mhm.
contacted a few playwright friends of mine. They had stuff or they wrote stuff, and we kind of pieced together a production of 6 small plays, short plays from playwrights all over the United States, and Grief Dialogues was born. And it will be
I'm
10 years ago in February that we launched this. And that's
so
literally
gorgeous.
how it all started. Yeah.
Well, you know what, Elizabeth? This is what I've learned working in end of life is that there is a plan, there is a path. And if we just show up for that path, it will unfold in front of us. That's kind of how life works in mastery. So it's not an accident, but it's such a beautiful story. And for a minute, if we can go back, the couple of things that I want to really dive into. Let's go back to the very beginning when, you were sharing with people when they said, "Oh, you're in California, great, you're having great, all this," and you're like, "No, this is really why I was there." And they all of a sudden had a phone call that they had to take. What is the fear of death? What do you think happened here that because I had to go ahead and do my own work of saying we are a civilization that has been around for thousands of years, right? No one, as far as I know, and anyone who knows any different, gets out of having the transformation out of this gift we've been given. How did it get to such a closeted, closed, feared subject?
It's a very good question, and I've asked myself that over and over. Do feel that with the advancement in medicine,
Mhm.
that um, people just assume they're going to live longer, that they'll somehow beat out immortality. I mean, it's kind of like Woody Allen's phrase about "I'm not afraid of death. I just don't want to be there when it happens." That was kind of the if you challenge somebody about their beliefs, and their fear around death, that oh, I'm not afraid of death, but they are. And the I'm not sure whether that was the Industrial Revolution or, like I said, modern healthcare has gotten to the point now that if they don't cure the person, if they don't save the person from dying, they feel it's a failure. And in
Mhm.
fact, they're ranked, hospitals are ranked based on the number of deaths, right? So the doctors and nurses and everything, they're wonderful, wonderful people, but their goal is to keep the person alive, whether it makes sense to do so or not.
So take a
And so
deep
I do,
breath.
Yes.
I mean, I do this work all the time and I need to take a deep breath because you are so on point. And what kind of craziness is this?
It is so crazy.
So here's the beautiful thing, and I do want to compliment your writing because you're say yes that people came up because they saw themselves in that particular segment, but your writing beautifully brought it to life. And I've been honored to be at a few of your plays and see it. And I love that you have the different scenarios because it's like ice cream. There's a flavor that fits everyone. Somebody can
Mm.
relate to that experience. Someone can relate to that part of grief and to that end of life. And it's so well done. And you create a space for all of us, which is really just gorgeous. But back to the fear for a minute. So for me, again, allowing your divine path to unfold for you, that you came into the world as far as a belief system is for us to follow. It's purpose. It's what we're here for, leaving the world a better place because we're in it. Having so much experience with people at the end of life as a hospice nurse, as an oncology nurse, working with people around the world, as a doula giver, having beautiful experiences in that end of life space. And they're spiritual and some that, again, people are very unaware of the beauty that can be in this sacred ceremony because we don't talk about it and don't see it. So I think it's a combination when you talk about absolutely medical industrial revolution, kind of keeping people alive and the craziness that that is. And when you share the story of your cousin with ovarian cancer, who on that second time period said, enough, I'm done. I'm not doing this again. I'm not going for the chemo and the radiation and all of it. When we don't talk about it and when we're training doctors to keep people alive and just there's only one path and that path may not be the ideal path for that patient or what they want. So I think feel like it's a couple of reasons why we're in the stage that we're in now, but it's time to go back to our roots, so to speak, of how end of life used to be revered as a sacred rite of passage and can go really well with the right education and support. Yeah.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
So 10-year anniversary coming up for Grief
Yes.
Dialogues.
Anniversary. This is,
Wow.
I hit me the other day and was like, ooh, so we've got big plans. So,
Well, can you, first of all, congratulations on the anniversary. Second of all, it goes fast, doesn't it? And then third, can you share some of those plans? Because when I watch you in your world, and again, we have mutual friends and colleagues, it's so incredible to see the different creative paths in which you're bringing to this space. And that's something I just adore about you. It feels like to me that your passion and creativity is the driving force in this space and so uniquely done. Like not a lot of people bring the creativity, the color, and it's so unique how you do it. So what do you, and so thank you. And what do you have planned for this anniversary?
well, the big news is, well, there's actually two things, but I'll go with the farthest one away first. How's that? We are planning to take Grief Dialogues, the Experience, which we debuted in New York last October to great success. That includes 9 short plays, but it's a choose your own adventure. It's immersive. The audience moves from play to play, and there's colorful ribbons. And so it's just really interactive. And I don't want to say joyful, but it really, you feel the love in the room, which is what we
Mm-hmm.
meant to do. We are going to be taking it to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival in Edinburgh, Scotland in 2026. That is our plan. Now, anybody in the theater world knows this is like the quintessential opportunity to share really creative work with people who are there to watch and experience really creative work, not just your everyday kind of play or your everyday kind of musical. Having said that, my creative director and partner in Grief Dialogues now, Danny Davis, and I are going to Edinburgh, Scotland, the first 2 weeks in August to experience it. Apparently, I've never gone, but heard all kinds of great things about it. But the town of Edinburgh goes from a population of about 250,000 to a population of 750,000 for those 2 weeks of the Fringe. So it's, and I was advised, don't go to the Fringe until you've gone to the Fringe. So Danny and I are going on an exploratory trip, and we've already got numerous contacts there, and we have someone who's going to help us raise the money to take it over there and so forth. So I'm very confident that we will be able to bring it over. So that would be in August of 2026 in Edinburgh, Scotland. The other thing that is more right on our doorstep is that I should back up. I've never written a musical. I love musicals. My voice is terrible. I would love to break into song every chance I got, but thank goodness I don't, because everyone around me would be crying. But I was asked about a year ago to join the team of a play called Let's Write a Musical. And I was asked because the musical had been at the Hollywood Fringe in 2019. It had won the best of the Fringe in 2019. And we all know what happened in February of 2020. So that got put on hold. And a year ago, May, the book writer and the lyricist and composer, Laurie Chiaro, she and the director, Johnny Coppola, contacted me and said that a mutual friend of ours had recommended that I help them rewrite the book of this musical. The book is the story. So I said, well, if Nico Juber recommended me, there must be something here, send me the script. And right away I got it, because the basic story is it's an elderly man gets a terminal diagnosis, and he and his wife decide, instead of taking that one last trip around the world, that they were going to write a musical. And the stage is split, so you have the main characters, David and Lucy, dealing with cancer treatments, dealing with realities when cancer treatments don't work. But all through it all, they're writing this beautiful musical that's set in the 1950s in a diner. And on the other side of the stage is that musical coming to life. And it's just really a fun, joyous, yeah, a play with music, a lot of good music, a lot of good songs. People will leave the theater singing some of those songs, or at least humming them. So they wanted me to go in and make the book more real. The feedback they got was great music, great songs, interesting story, but they're too happy. They're writing this musical like nothing else is going on. So we need someone who knows about death and dying and cancer and all of that to really make this a substantial piece. And we're willing to hire that person. So I went through it. I made a lot of changes. I met with them again. They loved the changes, had a few more, etc. And then I said, after 2 or 3 meetings, I said, you know what? I don't want you to pay me. I think this musical is going somewhere. And I think it's a wonderful message coded in this beautiful musical about talking about death and dying, and maybe not waiting until you actually get that diagnosis. So I get the credit as book writer, as I should, but I am now the lead producer. And that play will be opening in Los Angeles September 5th at the Hudson Theater on Santa Monica Boulevard. We don't have the ticket up for sale yet, but if anybody is interested, they can, check out the Grief Dialogues website, because I always have stuff on there that they can learn more about the play. Or they can just email me straight and say, hey, let me know about tickets. So that's thrilling in and of itself. That's going to have a short run, only 2 weeks, and technically considered a workshop production. But our goal after that, and we've already been accepted by York Theater in New York, is to get it ready to be at the York Theater in New York in December of 2026. There's a lot of steps between our opening night in September and the opening night in New York, including a potential run in Seattle, which is where I'm from.
Wow.
So, there's no given that that's going to actually happen, but it's already built with such momentum, and it's so great to see people really embracing it. And it's not a sugar-coated message, not not once I got my hands on it. It's not a sugar-coated message. It's very real, but very beautiful. And spoiler alert, he does die in the end. So,
Well,
but
spoiler alert for all of us. Yeah,
yeah, really.
we change. We all change form. Sometimes we change form a bit before we actually change out of this body. But that's another
Right,
layer of grief that I
right.
think we're not really embracing either. When you were
True.
speaking, something came to mind when I was working as a younger nurse, and I would hear people say, that cancer was the best thing that happened to me as they're dying. I could not understand what they were talking about. And, when you're talking about this musical, many times, and I'll just share from what my perspective is on this, is that when their identity that they've been going through this journey with, right? Suzanne, a nurse, a female, 5'8", blonde, whatever it is now being stripped away with the terminal diagnosis, and they're changing physically how they are, and they're not working anymore and all. And they finally find themselves, their true self in there. There's a peace and serenity, and it's been there the whole time. And I can see where, yeah, it's like the caterpillar becoming the butterfly. I mean, there's real truth to that. And, I think that you said it before we get to end of life, let's try and find the core and the essence of our beauty, because it's right here. But we need to be able to reach it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I clearly don't think you're working hard enough, because with all of the things you just shared, I love when I say that to somebody. It's not many people that I'm able to say that to, but to you, my gosh, you have so many amazing things. So we'll put the links for that below. But
Mhm.
so exciting what you're doing. And again, I know that you're fueled by just the divine kind of path that opens up for you. And when you do, by the way, like, it's just interesting how I always have a saying that you say yes to showing up for the universe, God, source, whatever you believe, the universe will show it for you. People
Mhm.
will come into your life, opportunities will come into your life, and all you have to do is say yes and step in it. And
Yes,
you do a beautiful example of doing that. So
thank you.
just
Uh,
just amazing, Elizabeth. So we're going to put all of that contact. Now I want to go to LA, but you'll come to New
oh,
York and Scotland, all of the things.
yeah,
Um,
right. But you are
but
getting a special invitation to opening night. I will tell you that right
thank
now.
you.
So
Thank you. I
hopefully
really appreciate that. How can people follow up with you and find more about this beautiful work you're doing called Grief Dialogues?
I think the easiest way is to just be on griefdialogues.com.
Okay.
Uh, all the projects are there. I've recently switched from a newsletter. The newsletter is still in existence, but it's for events only. And I'm now going to be posting on Substack for the contact that I used to put in the newsletter. But that's the best way. And my email, I'm always open. It's Elizabeth Coplan at Gmail. Simple, my name.
Okay.
So
All
that's
right.
easy.
Yeah, the website is beautiful. I just love all of the colors and everything there. And your events are all listed. So go to griefdialogues.com and you can find out the latest of events and check one out, because not only I know a few people who went to your grief dialogue, the experience, they loved it. They could not stop talking about that. So make sure you go and you can find an event near you. Elizabeth Copeland, thank you so much for who you are and all the work you do. And I cannot wait to just watch the journey.
Great. Thank you, Suzanne, and Mutual. Thank you for all the work you do. You're so inspiring. So thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. That was another episode of the Good Death Podcast. Ask a Death Doula. We'll see you in the next episode. There you have it, an amazing interview with an amazing woman, Elizabeth Copeland from the Grief Dialogues. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. So here we have the Good Death Book Club and movement. There is a movement that is on now. The Good Death movement brings back a good life movement. And it takes each and every one of us to choose every single day how we're showing up in this world. We're either showing up in separateness or we're showing up in love. Join us in this good death movement. I'm going to put links below where you can join, you can share, you can get inspiration in this space. And of course, join our community in the Good Death Book Club. We'll see you in the next one.